Yeah, man. Greetings, Ras Tafari, Haile Emperor Haile King Selassie I, the first, the perfect balance Empress Menin. This is first man from Ras Tafari Indigenous Village, recognizing, accepting, promoting Lion Voice. Yes, the voice of Ras Tafari, speaking about Ras Tafari, educating Ras Tafari, preserving, protecting Ras Tafari. Give thanks.
Aye, Ras Tafari, mighty.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega, representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Rastafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice, Rastafari.
Blessed love, this is Ras Tafari representing for the lion's voice. Seeing? Yeah, man. Keep it locked right there, sir. On to Zion we go. Lion voice don't move slow, no. Rastafari rules and reigns, and we're going where the blessings flow. Keep it locked right there, sir. Saying? Ras Tafari said that. Lion's voice.
I'm Nana Farika. The time has come for the lioness to tell her story from her viewpoint and tell the world who Queen Omega is. This is the lion's voice.
Greetings, this is Junior Martin of Bob Martin and the Wailers. The time has come for the lion to tell his story. And we have here the lion voice. So listen in and get nourishment for the stomach and for the head cup. Jah,
Rastafari. Give thanks,
give thanks and praise every time.
Great honor, great honor.
What are you waiting for? Come together, calling from near and far. Know who you are. What are you waiting for? Rally up, it takes the dust. What are you waiting for? Ancestors paved the way for us. Yes, I am Ketis Oyonde, asking, what are you waiting for to come together? The time has come for the lions to tell our own story. This is the lion's voice.
It's AWTITUDE representing for Lion's Voice. Yes, massive. This is the time for I and I, the lion, them to tell I and I story, our story. Yes, and we reign and rule like this. Reign and rule, yeah. Selassie I reign and rule. You can't take the lion vibes, people. If you no fool, cause we know Selassie reign and rule. Reign and rule. Selassie I reign and rule. Queen Omega drop them in the fire, pull from them. No Queen Omega, she reign and rule. Royal Kushite, ancient essence, Emperor Selassie in a majestical presence, flash of all sevens, projecting through I and I events. We sing a song for the king, we bring joy and blessing and overstanding, yeah. We hear Jah every day, hey. Reign and rule, yeah. Selassie, reign and rule. Yes, I lion vibes, Selassie, reign and rule. Attitude to that. Boondocks, Black Organization of Global Diplomats optimizing expressions to the world. Till the world, till the end.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice.
Yeah, Ras Tafari, Emperor Haile Selassie I first. Tell the people about Empress Menin. Well, even if the stars they fall and the moon turn into blood, well, to the coming war we stand tall. I will shower you with my love. And even when the people start ball, cause they see the city streets them flood. But when the hurricane blow down your wall, I'll be by your side and me now, but think I found the love. love of a lifetime. I love you every day or the night time. Almighty, I made your light shine, and unto I, your love was a lifeline. Think I found the love of a lifetime. I love you every day or the night time. Almighty, I made your light shine, and unto I, that light was a lifeline. It seems like the world is upside down. I will never hide, I'd rather stand my ground. Lion of Judah blessed with the triple crown. Can't unfool I with no circus clown. Now fear no hurricane or the cyclone. Respect for Mama Earth with that embedded on me bone. That's why I will never leave you alone. Protect you from harm when the alarm sound. So even when the stars they fall and the moon turn into blood, to the coming war we stand tall. I will shower you with my love. And even when the people start mal, but they see their city streets them flood, the hurricane blow down our wall, I'll be by your side and me not budge. Think I found the love of a lifetime. I love you every day or the night time. The Almighty, I made your light shine, and unto I, your light was a lifeline. I think I found the love of a lifetime. I love you every day or the night time. The Almighty, I made your light shine, and unto I, your love was a lifeline. They say hurt people. Maybe that's why Babylon them so evil. Maybe Babylon abused as a child.
Greeting. Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of His chosen Queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwasi Banso, aka the Chasmarch Kwasi, aka Ras Kwasi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan-African Happy Man, creative industry attorney. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an actionist, and right now I am the host of Lion Voice Live. Welcome to the Lion Voice Live, and welcome to the Lion Voice Network, where the lions are telling our own story. We are on the road right now. I'm actually at the I Never Knew TV studios. I had an interview today, and we are here on the road with a setup. So let me know in the comment section if you can hear me loud and clear. We're on a little bit different setup today. Let me know if you can hear my audio. Put a thumbs up or a fire emoji in the comment section to let me know you can hear. This is a special edition of Lion Voice Live that we have here today. I need my lion pride, strength on this one. Please let me know if you can hear me. Put a comment in the comment section so we make sure we're not talking to ourselves before we bring in our guests. Sound check, 1 2 1 2. Big up Zella Africa, my sister from Ghana. Good to see Ghana tuned in. Let us know. Can you hear? Can you hear? Let us know in the chat. I want to see some comments. Let me know. Ras Roots, can I hear I? Lion Pride and Patreon family, can them hear I? Loud and clear. We love it. 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 That's all I wanted to know. Forgive the lighting. We're gonna get dialed in. I'm so elated to have this reasoning. coming off of our reasoning with Mama Adwa Asante. If you haven't seen the Becoming Harriet Tubman episode from last night, take your time and go watch it. Very powerful, Pan-African content. And today we have this one, certain episodes we know are going to become instant classics. This is one of these instant classic episodes. Our guest today is very controversial when it comes on to global Rastafari family. Is a brethren, he's a scholar, and he's very learned. He's coming from South Africa, where there's a lot of evolution, let's say, in the Rastafari cosmology, how they cite the divinity of His Majesty. They are rejecting the biblical, the Judeo-Christian narrative, and they are looking to their own history and culture in terms of the justification of the divinity. And I've had this brethren, when we had our panel for the coronation, I had this brethren on the panel. He said, if every knee shall bow and every tongue confess, why are people fighting against people when they come up with different interpretations of the divinity of His Majesty? Not everybody's going to be Christian that bow or that confess the power. And that resonated with because if His Majesty is who we say He is, then the impact goes beyond just those who follow Him faithfully. There's, the power, it's over the whole world. So when we see people from the Hausa or the Zulu or the other kingdoms of Africa bow before Him, acknowledge His divinity, but maybe put a little bit of different spin, we have to give room for these different interpretations. We can't burn them out and say because it's not biblical, we're not deal with them. Because unity does not mean uniformity. But what we have to do is have some understanding about, where they're coming from. And in so doing, we learn a little bit more about ourselves and about our own traditions. So today, we're going to take a deep dive into a South African reality. This brethren is one of the architects. He's the founder of the Melchisedek Order in South Africa, which, sprung out of the Nyabingi house. We had elders like Bongo Watto and Mama B, other Nyabingi elders who went to South Africa with a radical doctrine, let the dead bury the dead, now go a funeral, Rastafari live forever. And, the South Africans were seeing their people die. Africa is a communal place where marriage and funerals mean a lot to the society. And the brethren left these things following the Nyabingi order, but found that it wasn't adequate and they didn't feel whole. So they filled in some of the gaps. And even in Jamaica, there's an effort to revise the Nyabingi guidelines to allow for funeral, for weddings. So we're all coming to this place at the same time, but from different vantage points. So we want to explore what is happening in South Africa, to expose the global lion pride to what's going on in South Africa. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we are educating, and I'm looking forward. This brethren has so much knowledge. So this is going to be a real treat. But before we bring forward the brethren, and he's getting himself together, I just spoke with him. Before we bring forward the brethren, let us just big up the greatest online community on the planet, the Global Lion Pride. If you subscribe, you're part of the Lion Pride. This community is poised to do great things. We're 58,500 plus strong right now, gaining in strength every day. We still have not filled out our economic engine, but that is also growing in strength. Big up to all of the ones who have become a part of the economic base, the Lion Pride on Patreon. Big up on yourself. Ras Roots, who has taking a leadership role out of the Lion Pride on Patreon in modeling the type of participation that we need to make this sustainable. Remember, family, I'm actually at I Never Knew TV studio in one of his offices, and you know, this brethren, Junior the Baldhead from I Never Knew TV, he started as one of my clients. I advised him. We've grown to be very close brethren, and I'm here at his studio. I Never Knew TV is a full-time operation. He has staff. He has a cameraman here. I just finished an interview that will be airing on the platform. But because I had this interview, you know, he allowed me to use one of his offices. So we're seeing where we want to go modeled in front of us. You know what I mean? He has his set, camera, 3 camera shoot, set up, all of them thing there. Lion Voice Network, we eventually will get to that level. Right now we're filming out of I Gates, and nothing wrong with that, because you start where you are. But again, we surround ourselves with the people who we want to model, and to get there, it's going to take a strong financial base. So I big up the Lion Pride on Patreon, the 42 brethren and sisters from around the world who have locked arm in arm with I to say Rastafari, independent, non-aligned media matters, that, you know, we are going to be a part of the media regardless of, you know, the naysayers, the doubt, all of those things. I give thanks for those. And it doesn't take a lot, you know, $5 a month, $10 a month. You know, if you're doing $10 a month, that's $2.50 per strong that you're investing in Rastafari independent media. But it's also a major strength. If we have 50,000 people giving $10 a month, that's 50 almost $500,000 every month that's coming in. So that just shows you that staff, that's facilities, creating Rastafari content. So again, I have to big up all of the Lion Pride on Patreon for believing in the vision, knowing that the vision can work, and supporting. I keep on saying no one is coming to save us. Let me say that again. No one is coming to save us. Without I funding our own revolution, our own liberation, it's not going to happen. So if you're watching this and if you love the content, you love the consistency, over 1,000 pieces of content on the platform right now. We're over 750,000 views in the lifetime of the channel. We're coming up on the 1 million views milestone. If you've seen the growth over 4 years and you say, all right, this brethren is serious, you know what I mean? Him nah, stop. We're going live tomorrow night as well to talk about the rescheduling of cannabis with attorney Cheryl Murray Powell of the EWF, who's also a cannabis attorney. So we're putting pressure on people for the end of this Roman calendar year. We go off of the Ethiopian New Year calendar, but we still have put pressure upon the people. So if you see the work ethic and you say, you know what, this brethren serious, let me support with my dollars so we can see the thing scale. And I won't always be the host of every program. We want to hire young people. But as I tell my clients, you got to start where you are. So I'm starting with myself as the talent, but the idea is when we build the capacity that we will bring in more brethren and sistren, you know what I mean? So that is what we are really looking to do. So big up everyone on the Lion Pride on Patreon. Big up the Ubuntu Lion Pride, $100 US gets you a lifetime honor. That number will go up in time, but right now $100 gets you a lifetime commemoration of your contribution. We just had another person added, so now we have 15 people in the Ubuntu Lion Pride that will be under collective security. Well, big up yourself, brethren out of Trinidad in the UK coming on board. And we have many others who I know want to contribute. I want to just big up the item because we're breaking that concept that we can't support each other. And remember, anything with value is worth investing in. So if you think that what we're doing here is valuable, then it's worth your investment. I see my guest has arrived. We're going to bring him in shortly. But first, let me also big up the Action Lion Pride. There is a $ above the comment section where you can give a contribution during this live chat. If you love the reasoning, drop a $5. If you're in the UK, drop a £5, drop a £10, drop a £20. You know what I mean? While the reasoning is happening, that will put you in the Action Lion Pride. If you don't have $1, because times are hard, all you have is Wi-Fi. Like, comment, and share boosts up the algorithm so that this can be shared with many people and we can get the message out there to the global family. If you are a watcher or a peeper, big up on yourself. I keep saying this is the most dangerous platform for a peeper on the planet, because if you come over here with a bad mind, the positivity of the platform is going to make you clean up your heart and become a supporter. So if you want to keep your bad mind, it's better you just leave before you come here, because trust me, there's too much positivity over here. We agree to disagree over here. We don't make it, I don't make my brother enemy because we have a disagreement. That's not how we function over here. This is mature adult reasoning. So if you can't agree to disagree, this might not be your platforms. And I'm fine with that, because right now we're not trying to convert anyone. We're looking for the like minds to build the kingdom of the Almighty on earth. So big up all of the aspects of the Lion Pride. Big up all of the brethren and sistren globally for this reasoning. We're going to bring forward our guests shortly. Big up to all our South Africa family. I know that they'll be filing in shortly. This brethren is a popular brethren, so we're going to bring him in. And we look forward again to a lively comment section. We're going to ask people to be respectful in the comment section, please, and thank you. And I know that the item will, because the Lion Pride, I always love the comment section. People reason back and forth. And there's always, you know, I mean, that level of respect and high level. Big up Sister Marie, who corrected I. You know, I mean, I said that Princeton had the largest endowment. She said Harvard. And I said, no, Princeton, I'm tough up myself. And when we went and we checked, it was Harvard. So that shows you the level of intelligence in our comment section with our Lion Pride. And I'm not afraid to say that I'm wrong either. You know what I mean? I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. Because if I'm always right and I'm always the one, that means I'm in the wrong place. I'm not surrounding myself with people smarter than myself. So I always want to surround myself with people. So we're going to bring forward our guests. Big up Ramia King Design, big up Frontline Books, big up all of our sponsors for making this possible. We're just getting started here on the Lion Voice Network. So big up on yourself. Give a warm Lion Voice Network welcome to our guest for today, Field Marshall Thau Thau. Field Marshall Thau Thau. Greetings. Let me unmute the eye. I think you have to unmute yourself. Also, if you can put your phone this way, put your phone on landscape mode if you can. Unmute yourself. We're going to work it out. Unmute yourself, King. Click on the microphone button. Is it noise? Oh. Yes. We're going to go here. So unmute yourself, King. Can you unmute yourself? We are Okay, we're going through some production. We're getting it together. We're getting it together. We're having a little Wi-Fi, the guy issue. But we're getting it together, family. This is historic. We have Field Marshall Thau Thau. Yeah, yeah. We got Field Marshall Thau Thau in the house coming forward. We're working on the Wi-Fi connectivity issue. But we're going to be talking about Rastafari, the interpretation. We're here live at the I Never Knew TV studio. I'm in the office, fresh off a brand new interview that will be airing on I Never Knew TV shortly. You know, I Never Knew TV is one of our collaborators. If you don't see, Lion Voice is on that platform. We have interviews with Sprague Benz, with many other ones, Honorable Priest Fagan, many other ones. So we are here and we are ready. Big up Ras Roots. Welcome to the Honorable Thau Thau, Haram Nubia. And again, we're just working on the Wi-Fi connection. Greetings.
Greetings, King. Greetings to...
Greetings. Hold on a second. I'm not hearing my audio. All right, talk. Let me hear.
Greetings, King. Ras Tafari.
I don't know. Hold on one second.
Are you able to hear me?
Let me talk. Let me hear.
Ras Tafari.
Haile. Beautiful, beautiful. Can you hear me?
Yes, King. I can hear the eye very well.
All right, beautiful. All right, family. You see, so we don't panic. We just do what we have to do, and we're good. So, first of all, let me just say what an honor it is to have the eye on the platform once again. I've been looking forward to this. You know, I've heard the eye name resound for many Iowa, you know. So now we get to have this reasoning with the eye, find out who is the eye. And you said something that struck a chord with I on the...
I'm not hearing the eye. The audio is down. Can you hear me, my King?
Greeting. Can you hear I?
I can hear the eye now. I last heard the eye when the eye said something that struck the chord.
Yes. When you said that every knee shall bow and every tongue confess. So why are people upset that other people are interpreting the divinity of His Majesty in different ways, you know? And that struck a chord because having traveled to Africa many times and knowing the complexity of the cosmology of different African nations and kingdoms, you know, I know that there's going to be differences in interpretation. But before we get there, I want to do this properly. We have to bubble the sip right. I want the eye to step into our Lion Talk time machine and to bring us to the moment of your birth and to give us the origin story of the Field Marshal that we know as Thau Thau. Where were you born and what was your journey to Rastafari?
Give thanks, King. Give thanks to Lions of Lion Voice production. Give thanks to I and I who tune into this streaming. Well, I was born 51 years ago. That will be 1974 on the 2nd of August in South Africa, in the northern part of South Africa called Limpopo province, the main city of it called Polokwane, where this is the last province before you go to Zimbabwe, in a place called Seshiro. One of our most famous son of this place is Julius Malema. So basically, me and Julius Malema come from the same place. Our grandmothers used to share the same sniff, the traditional powder sniff they put in their noses.
Okay.
Yeah, and my uncle still work for Julius Malema even today. Actually, yesterday I was asking him, give us some dollars, man. Julius did not give you some money. He likes to give him a lot of money. So I grew up in a very interesting family setup.
Yes.
My father is the first generation of Christians coming from a long line of African spirituality practitioners.
Okay.
Which my grandfathers were rainmakers, one of the 4 families in Limpopo that are rainmakers, who specialize in divination and initiation schools that initiates young boys into men, this rites of passage.
Yes.
But my father became the first one to become a Christian due to schooling. Schools, the first people to introduce schools were missionaries. And most of our people, when their parents sent them to school, they did not come back with Western education, but they also came back with Western religion, which is Christianity. So my father is one of those people who are considered to be a seer, a prophet who could foretell what is going to happen. So he had 9 wives and 52 of us. I've got 51 siblings. I come from a very long line of polygamists. I know about 7. I'm the 7th generation of the elders whom I know by name, including my father. We're all polygamous, had 12 wives, 14 wives, and so forth. So my father being the first Christian on the paternal side of my family.
Yes.
And then on my maternal side of the family, my mother's father and mother, I never heard them talk about God in the Western concept, Bible, Jesus, church, any of those things. They were strict African spirituality practitioners. But the same grandfather, me and him are the 2 people in our family who went to Ethiopia and who served Haile Selassie. My father was a South African British soldier during the Second World War. In 1941, they were deployed in Ethiopia to liberate Ethiopia from the fascist. So me and him are the 2 people in the family who ever went to Ethiopia, who were both soldiers. I was a soldier during the liberation struggle, and my grandfather was also a soldier during the Second World War, and we both went to Ethiopia. And interesting enough, in 2003, I was given a scholarship by the late Abuna Paulos, and then I started my studies with the Ethiopian Orthodox Church in 2004 and 2006. So the same place where I was studying at Kulfe, at St. Paul High Spiritual Theological College, Suasua Brhan in Amharic. Next to it is the police training camp where Mandela was trained when His Majesty gave him a passport, and training when he started the military wing of the ANC, Umkhonto weSizwe, as the first trained member of it. So there used to be this security guard, Zebenya. Every time when you see me, will go like Dagmawi Mandela. I know Dagmawi means second, like Dagmawi Menelik will be second Menelik. Kadamawi means first, Kadamawi Haile Selassie, first Haile Selassie, Dagmawi. So he used to say Dagmawi Mandela, and I asked him one day, why do you call me that? He said, no, you're the second South African who came here. The first was Mandela in the 60s, in 1962, who came here for a training. And the second one is you now, who came here for your theological spiritual training. So we are 2 people who ever went to Ethiopia, me and my grandfather. My grandfather was a traditional healer, African spiritualist, a former soldier for South African British Army.
Yes.
And then my father, when he passed away in 1983. So when he passed, I was 9 years old then. When he
Okay.
passed, he said to my mother, you must no more go to church. This is a man who used to have his own church. Those African indigenous churches or African initiated churches like Ethiopian Church of South Africa that was established in 1892 by Mangena Mukoni,
Okay.
the apostolic churches, the Zionist, and H.I.M, ZCC, these are all what they call the African initiated churches or African indigenous churches as a result of experiencing discrimination within the mainstream Christian churches like Dutch Reformed Church, Lutheran Church, Roman Catholic Church, Methodist, Presbyterian, Anglican, and so forth. So my father, on his deathbed, he told my mother to return back to her ancestral ways and don't go to church. She must stop going to church. So my mother stopped going to church in 1983. In 1984, she went on to initiate as a traditional healer, which she still is. Right now, she's about 85 years old.
Okay.
She was born in 1940. Still very strong, one of those African traditional healers. So I'm a child of both side of my family, long line of traditional healers, African spirituality practitioners, initiators, and rainmakers. So African spirituality become natural for me because every time, like now is festive season, when people go to their different places, we were taken to our grandmothers, my maternal grandmother, and then they will perform African rituals for us. When it's Easter, people are going to their Easter weekends to their different Christian churches. We were taken to our maternal grandmother's house where they will do different type of rituals, inoculation, steaming, incense, fumigations, depending with whatever directives they receive from the ancestors. So it becomes something that shaped me. And then in 1990, I was about 16 years old, and that was the greatest turning point in my life. That is the time when I first signed up Ras Tafari. That is the time when I joined the liberation movement first, the ANC military wing Umkhonto Wesizwe, and after 1991, Mandela suspended the armed struggle, I joined the Pan-Africanist Congress Liberation Army, the PAC of Azania, what they call the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, their liberation army being Azanian People's Liberation Army. I was trained there as a soldier, trained with guerrilla warfare, conventional warfare methods.
Okay.
1994, Mandela became a president. We were integrated into the new defense force. So through this journey, my first dreadlocks was in 1990.
Okay.
How did I get to set up Ras Tafari? Was through the man who was recruiting us for a military training. So he used to expose us to different materials, the Nicaragua Revolution, the Sandinista movement, the Cuban Revolution, Che Guevara, different type of revolutions. One day he played Bob Marley's Legend, the VHS video during the days of the VHS.
Yes.
So when he played Bob Marley, when it comes to Redemption Song, he rewinded it 3 times. And on the 3rd time, the words emancipate yourself from mental slavery stuck into my head. And on the 3rd time when he rewinded that, I decided then and then I'm going to be a Rastafari.
Right.
But I was exposed to reggae music from 1980 when I first got to school. One of my father's sons from his first wife, he used to sell ganja. He played reggae music with vinyls. He had this small, what they call space gram. He had a lot of LPs, the vinyls.
Okay.
He used to play reggae music. He will be smoking his long joint the whole night, dancing to reggae music. I remember I first heard from him at that tender age of 7 years that Bob Marley passed away.
Yes.
And he had this big book about Bob Marley, Catch a Fire. I think it was Catch a Fire, the biography of Bob Marley by Timothy White.
Yes.
So my first exposure to Rastafari appearance reggae music was from him. But in 1990, it came very strong with this man who was recruiting me to be part of the liberation movement.
Okay.
And through playing this redemption song 3 times, and then the 3rd time I decide I'm going to be a Rastafari. And when I left his house, I went to this brother now I'm talking about, who has always had a large collection of reggae music. I went there to look for some albums, reggae albums. I found that he's only left with Legend, Bob Marley's Legend, and Uprising, and Peter Tosh, Mama Africa. I abused those records. I played them one time. One time I went to school, I forgot them, and then I did not close the curtain, and the sun burned one of them. You know those vinyls that are burned by the sun? They start to bend, and then they play funny. I was listening to them every day. But what I loved about them is that most of those reggae LPs, they had lyrics written in the back. So it made it easier for me to connect certain Rastafari philosophy with reggae music. So I'm one of those Rastas who can proudly say I am a Bob Marley Rasta. You know, I consider Bob Marley a prophet. I don't care who say what. Bob Marley opened my eyes to Rastafari. As much as I don't read Bible now, I used to love how he quote the Bible. You go like, the Bible say within 2,000 years, Christ shall return as Christ in his kingdom. I used to love that. I used to embellish that. So it spoke to my inner core.
Yes.
So
stick up in before you go further. What did you learn from your uncle about his time in Ethiopia? Did he tell you any stories about serving His Majesty on the battlefield? And
that is not that's not my uncle. That's my grandfather.
Grandfather. Did he tell you any stories about his service in Ethiopia, or you just knew generally that he served in Ethiopia?
No, he had a very. You see, this is very interesting, and I've been to 18 African countries, right?
Yes.
In Tanzania, I met an old man who say, when Haile Selassie visited Julius Nyerere in the 60s, he could tell that this is not an ordinary man. So I grew up surrounded by mystical testimonies about His Majesty. Miriam Makeba, when they were coming back in 1990, she talked about her time when she was singing during the opening of the OAU in 1963. She said, she asked His Majesty, where can I change? You know, I went to this Jubilee Palace, His Majesty's Palace in Addis Ababa. It's got 7 throne room. And she talked about His Majesty said she must just find anywhere in the palace to change. She said she went into one of the 7 throne rooms. And while she's busy changing and putting her clothes on top of the throne of His Majesty, all of a sudden a bright light like the sun just shone. There's shine. And from there, she knew that Haile Selassie is not an ordinary person. So the same thing my grandfather said, that when they saw Haile Selassie, they knew that he's not an ordinary man. They knew that there's something very mystical about him. They can't put their fingers on it. So as much as not everyone can articulate it in the way that Rastafari articulated, which is just another articulation of His Majesty's divinity. Yes. I met an old woman in Ethiopia during my studies there in 2004 who said to me, she came as one of the bridesmaids for Empress Menen. They were coming from Wolo province, accompanying Empress Menen to Addis Ababa during her marriage with Haile Selassie. She said to me, do you know that Haile Selassie did not die? I said to her, what happened? This is an ordinary Ethiopian woman. I'm not talking about Ras Tafari now.
Yes.
And she said, he went straight to the moon. And before I go there, I remember in 1995, my first wife, who passed away, may her soul rest in peace, she passed away in 2009.
Condolences.
My first wife said to me when she first signed up Rastafari, at this, although this is a hybrid of Haile Selassie and Empress Menen inside of Africa, but there is this one images that most Rastafari we have of Haile Selassie, of the coronation, Haile Selassie wearing his crown. Yes. And she said to me, you know this man you always carry around your neck and you've been telling me that he's God. I saw him in the moon. So I thought it was a Rasta thing because you hear it a lot around Rasta. But then I get to meet this Ethiopian woman, an old woman who said, Haile Selassie did not die. So what happened? She said he went to the moon. And then one time I was moving around because I was studying at a theology college with monks, with marigettas, with priests, different clergies, this different spiritual hierarchy of the Orthodox Church, religious hierarchy of the Orthodox Church.
Yes.
One what do you call this? This first level of the clergy in the Ethiopian church. How do I forget that part? What do you call this title? I'll think about it while I'm going along.
Okay.
So this first level man, it just escaped my mind. Okay, this man, he is that what they call them? Okay, he said to me, do you know that Haile Selassie is not the name of a man? I said to him, what is it? It's the name of what? He said, Haile Selassie is a name, it's not the name of a man or an angel. I said, what is it? He said, it's the name of a God. And then it just passed. And these are my experiences in Ethiopia for 2 years, from 2004 to 2006, that you will meet somebody in the middle of nowhere and just say one sentence, one line. And I then learned that Rastafari is not this complexity that we are trying to make out of it with a lot of theological jargons and theological explanation. It's simple, just the name itself, powerful Trinity.
Yes.
Because in a proper Ge'ez Amharic, there is no adjectives in between. There is no power of the Holy Trinity. For you to arrive at that, you must have Haile Zekedus Selassie.
Yes.
So, in simple terms, Haile means power or mighty, Selassie means Trinity. So, the basic definition is mighty Trinity.
Yes.
And for me, that's my understanding very well that mighty Trinity means God Almighty. Because in most spiritual tradition, not only Christian, God is always defined in the context of Trinity. Whether it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit, whether it's Father, Mother, and Child, whether it's Sun, Moon, and Stars,
Yes.
whether it's heaven, earth, and hell.
Yes.
But it's always this triune conception of the
Proton,
divine.
electron, neutron.
Yeah, electron, neutron, protons.
Yes.
You know, so
Atom.
there's always this triune conception of the divine.
Really?
So for me to just say mighty Trinity, it spoke to, it's a name that is self-definition and self-explanatory. So it was enough for me to hear some clergy in the Ethiopian church said, you know, Haile Selassie is a name of a God. It's not a name of a man. It's not a name of an angel either. Because I went to Ethiopia when I got the scholarship, I was already 14 years Rastafari.
Okay.
And I've already done I've gone through my basic denialism. For 7 years, 1990 to 1997, I struggled with the idea of a man being a god. I'm a son of a bishop. I was grown in a church. The first book I learned to read was the Bible.
Yes.
I had a different understanding of what God is. But I'm drawn to this. I'm a Rasta. I define myself as a Rasta. I grow my dreadlock. These dreadlocks I have, these are the 4th one. And these ones I have, they're 28 years now.
Okay.
My first dreadlock was 35 years ago. They got cut in the military. They got cut again. They got cut 3 times in the military, basically.
Okay.
I was always being told that a soldier, even the liberation movement, they adopted somehow some British military standard. So you have to cut your hair short, shave your beard, and all of these things.
Okay.
And which my last year in the military, I had a big argument over that because I stopped shaving in 1997, both my beard and my hair. I'll just keep it as an afro and just bambata it. But then, until I terminated my contract in 1998, that I'm not doing this anymore. And I basically left the army to pursue Rastafari liberty because I did not have any alternative. And when they asked me what I'm going to do, I was like, I'm going to be a Rasta. And they were like, how can somebody leave an employment to become a Rasta? I said, watch me. And within a month, I was on a TV talking about Rastafari and talking for the Rastafari. And from 1998 until now, I've been on TV talking about Rastafari, albeit that I'm one of the most controversial Rastafari
Yes.
because I don't go by the conventional definition of Rastafari
Yes.
based on Judeo-Christianity. Yet
Yeah.
I'm a Rasta. I believe that central to Rastafari is Haile Selassie, and which differentiate me from Lucky Dube,
Okay.
our famous reggae
Yes.
star. Lucky Dube, he used to say Jarastafari, Jarastafari until he visit Jamaica, they sit him down and let him know that Jarastafari is Haile Selassie. And as a member of the Shembe Church, he had a serious problem with that. And so, as someone who don't smoke ganja, he had a
Yes.
problem with that. And then he went like, no, I'm not a Rasta. I spoke to Lucky Dube's son, who's a reggae singer with dreadlocks. I spoke to Lucky Dube's daughter. I asked them, are you Rasta? They told me that if you mean being Rasta means Haile Selassie is God and smoking ganja, then I'm not. I said, okay, I can talk about being Rasta is about Haile Selassie, let alone ganja smoking. I know a lot of Rastafari elders who don't smoke ganja, like
Yes. Yes.
Mutabaruka, like Prof. I,
Yes.
my brethren Chamuari here in South Africa is one of the bona fide Rastafari brethren. We do a lot of works together in the Rastafari United Front,
Yes.
fighting for the Rastafari rights, but he does not smoke ganja. So I don't make ganja smoking a prerequisite of Rastafari,
No,
but the divinity of Haile Selassie a prerequisite of Rastafari.
I agree 1,000%. That the divinity is what unites us. You know, we have different interpretations of what that divinity looks like and what it means, but that is the common thread that we submit to, is that Haile Selassie is the leader of the movement, which helps us to get away from the petty power struggle, or should help us. But in terms of leaving the military now and becoming a public figure, speaking for Rastafari, what in your early child, was it a biblical interpretation that you were espousing? Was it a musical from Bob Marley in your early days now? And we're going to get into the establishment of the Melchisedek Order and some of the other works that you have done. But in the beginning, you know, what was your overstanding?
Well, as one who followed the teachings of Bob Marley, among others, I mean, Bob Marley pointed me to Haile Selassie, and Bob Marley used a lot of biblical references.
Yes.
As I said, that I used to embellish a lot on that, and also coming from a strong Christian background as a son of a bishop, as someone who grew up in the church, but also with a very strong African spirituality influence, that did not use the Bible as its frame of reference. Yeah, but the Bible was the basic, because even my ultimate comprehension of Haile Selassie divinity was a passage from the Bible, from the book of John, where he say, like I said, I had a 7 years argument within myself. I could not, I did not verbalize it. None of the people I was involved in Rastafari with between 1990 and 1997 can say to you that I debated the divinity of Haile Selassie or disputed it. No, I had my own internal debate,
Yes.
my own internal argument. But the moment of scales dropping from my eyes is when I was sitting. I was still in the military that time. I used to have a whole lot of paper cuttings, pictures of Haile Selassie, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer, Mutabaruka, all of these exponents of Rastafari during my time. But then there was this picture of Haile Selassie sitting on his throne, wearing a suit. Underneath it is written a quote from the book of John, that in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and the same was in the beginning with God, and without him was not anything made. Everything that is made by him. He took flesh, came unto his own, and his own received him not. Now, this passage, after reading that, something.
All right. Wi-Fi the guy. We see. If you are just joining us, we have the great Field Marshall Thau Thau Haram Nubia here on the Lion Voice Network. We are bringing cutting edge reasoning, high level Rastafari reasoning. If you're joining us, put where you're watching from in the chat. We're going to have chances to ask questions, but we are getting the history. We are now cruising on the Lion Talk time machine down memory lane, finding out the origin of why the brethren feel the way he feel about the Bible and where he is now within his cosmology and how Rastafari is evolving. Greetings. All right, we're going to let the Wi-Fi settle in. Yes,
Can
we
I
hear
hear
the
me?
Yeah, man, we hear the eye clear now.
Okay, sorry about that. I got
And if you
call
can hold
from
the camera a little bit away from the eye face so we can see the eye fully, would I love that.
just a moment, let me fix this thing.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. But family, this is where we have the uncomfortable conversations. We don't want to get comfortable and stagnate. We have to ask the hard questions about this beautiful levity that we all love. And this brethren is challenging some of the conventions that we hold dear. And so I had to have him here on the Lion Voice exclusive. Put where you're watching from, Lion Pride family. We are going deep and we are going high into the reasoning today. All right. Everything good you can hear?
Yes, King, I can hear, my lord.
All right, so continue, please.
So, sorry, I got disturbed by a call. You know, sometimes my phone is like a call center.
Yes.
People just call. So, it was from that moment, it was biblical, really. I preach the Bible. I carry the King James Version of the Bible with me. I prescribe it to the Rastafari. We have a very interesting version of the 12th tribe of Israel in South Africa. Actually, they are not like the 12 tribes of Israel of Prophet God, where there's so much in liberty to do a whole lot of things, like eating whatever they want, smoke whatever they want, and drink whatever they want. No, these are the most idle Rastafari who do not even put salt or oil in their food. So that's where we started. In South Africa, Rastafari was reggae influenced, then the 12th tribe of Israel for the longest time. That is why even today you'll still find the Naya being a man with 12 tribe name, being a man by the name of Joseph, Reuben, and they're trying to observe both certain practices within the Naya being within the 12 tribe in the Naya being. So I went through the 12 tribe system. And then in 1995, while I was deployed in Kimberley as a soldier, I was introduced to the Nyabingi. There was a Nyabingi church. Interesting enough, the same place where the Nyabingi church was in Kimberley is the same place where the Athley Afro Construction Church of Athley Rogers, based on the Holy PB, was. I don't know how extensively I did studies about the Holy PB,
Yes.
but there's a serious connection between Kimberley and the PB.
Yes.
Actually,
yes.
the bigger PB, because the most people, the PB that most people are familiar with and exposed to is a smaller PB. So the bigger PB is in the house of Joseph Masucha at Nyambani Street. In the year 2000, there was a big search for it. The likes of Carol Yoni from the Smithsonian Institute, they did come and look for that. But also, the first Secretary General of the ANC used to read the PB. He's one of the people who is attributed to have brought the PB from the West to South Africa here, the bigger PB. And in the 1920s, 1926, around that time, the Union of South Africa, we used to, in 1910, the colonizers, the British and the Boers, which are called the Afrikaners of the Dutch, they declared Union of South Africa, which most people don't understand, or they don't know that South Africa was once USA, Union of South Africa, before it became RSA, Republic of South Africa, in 1961. So during the Union of South Africa, they banned the holy PB and the Church of the PB and the Athli Afro Construction Church or Gathli at Kimberley. So and accuse the practitioners and the followers of the PB of sedition, among others. So the same place where the Church of the PB was there was the same place where the Nyabingi Church was, next to where there is an Ethiopian Church of South Africa that was founded in 1892 by Mangena Mukoni. So these are the first people who exposed Nyabingi to me, drumming system, everything. Before the coming of Ras Bonajis Congo Watu in 1996 to officially, formally introduce Nyabingi. Very interesting that of all places in Africa, it was in South Africa and in Ethiopia that Congo Watu, the founder of the Nyabingi Order, Ras Bonajis, came and established the Nyabingi here in 1996. So before that, I came across these brothers who were chanting Nyabingi in Kimberley, who began to introduce me to Nyabingi. And then 1998, when I terminated my contract, I hosted the biggest Rastafari event in my hometown. We used to have this thing we call Rabadab. Now, Rabadab is when we play reggae music the whole weekend. Because before Nyabingi, most Rastas, we used to celebrate Rastafari through reggae music. Before the Nyabingi drummings in 1992, that was introduced by the likes of Trevor Hall, Sister Makida from England. Trevor Hall, we call him Elder Jabulani, who has been moving between Zimbabwe and South Africa. And at one time,
legendary.
He was,
yeah, man.
Yeah, the reggae elder. But he's also a very staunch Nyabingi elder. He's also a Rastafari activist. We work together in so many activities of Rastafari. In 1997, I traveled with him and 10 other members of the Rastafari United Front to Ethiopia, where we went to establish the Rastafari Continental Council. So he's been very instrumental as an advisor and so forth. He was also instrumental in bringing the Nyabingi elders in South Africa. So I first then got introduced to Nyabingi in 1995. 96, Ras Bonajis came, they established the Nyabingi. 97, Bongo Time came, they established the Rastafari National Council. So these were gradual exposure in different dimension of Rastafari beyond we just being a reggae Rasta, graduating to the 12 tribes of Israel, and then to Nyabingi. And then later, in the 2000, we had a fallout. I had a fallout with the Nyabingi based on my polygamous practice. Like I did indicate that I come from a very long line of polygamous family.
Yes.
In the year 2000, I decided to have 3 Rasta women as my queens. And it rubbed the Nyabingi the wrong way because they are preaching monogamy, Christian monogamy, one man, one woman. And I started my first confrontation with Rastafari as a movement about African spiritual retention or African cultural retention or African cultural or traditional practices was when it came to the issues of polygamy. And then we had a serious fight, a fallout. I actually approached 7 Nyabingi elders, asking them advice. They all gave me different advices that it's okay, it's our African thing, only to find out they're going to spend another 7 months conspiring as to how to get rid of me. Because now I'm going to be a bad influence. So for the past 25 years, I've been having people who are trying to get rid of me out of Rastafari because my unconventional or my non-Jamaican articulation of Rastafari is considered to be heretic, is considered to be blasphemous, is considered to be problematic, So instead of trying to correct me, I mean, then as I was like 26 years old or something like that,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
approaching these elders as a young youth. They give me different advice, but it is because these elders, in 1999, we had a high priest who was appointed by Bongo time.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a problem with this high priest. That first he was racially mixed. The racially mixed in South Africa, they are called the colors.
Yes,
That now
yes.
being is a black supremacy order, we can't have a racially mixed person to be our high priest and the first high priest. So I was there, Julius Malema, from the beginning. I've always been talkative, fearless. I'm a former freedom fighter. I fear nothing but God. I come from the Special Forces of South Africa. Our motto was, we fear nothing but God. So, and that was what drive me, my ideas and everything. So they whispered to me that should you remove that man, will make you the high priest of the Naya being in South Africa. I did their dirty work. I removed him. After that, I opened the floodgates for those who are elder than me to fight over priesthood. So instead of keeping their end of their bargain, 6 months down the line, I gave them a hand grenade to throw at me because 6 months down the line, while they are busy debating, no, but Thau Thau is still young. Yeah, but yeah, we understand, but he's still young. You know, the elderly ones now who are coveting this position.
Yes, yes.
So instead of keeping their end of the bargain, they decided to use, now that I'm a polygamist, against me, that no, being preach one man, one woman. You can't be being a high priest with 3 wives and all of these things. And then we had a big fight when I realized that they've been having secret meetings about me for 7 months. Someone told me that if you take a direction towards the toilet, that is Grasmere Nayabingi grounds. There is a White House there. The last room, you'll always see people sitting down there talking, but they're talking about you. So I used to think, why every time I come, I've always had people who followed me. So I'll come with my crew, 15, 16 people, and these elders will leave. I thought, no, because they've been chanting from the morning or during the day, they're tired, they're going to rest, only to find a heavy meeting about me, how to get rid of me out of Ras Tafari. So this person told me when they came back, I opened Isaiah 4 verse 1, that in the last days, the Bible says 7 women shall take hold of one man, and they shall come with their clothes and their food.
Yes.
So I asked them, what is your biblical understanding of the scripture? Instead of they telling me the interpretation of that, they started to tell me that I come from a long lineage of witches. My ancestors who were practitioners of African spirituality are wicked, polygamy is evil. They started to tell me a lot about me, more than about the scripture I asked them to tell me about. I asked them, what is your verdict? And one woman who is now late and said, we as the Nayabing, we decided that you should no more be our priest. I said, well, the Nayabing guidelines said a woman got nothing to say in the issues of the altar. But I understand that it's a council led by women. So I pulled myself out. A few months down the line, I established the Melchisedek Order in Newville.
Okay.
I'm the first Rasta to have the biggest Rasta church in the city of Johannesburg, right in the city, in town.
Okay.
And the same people who fought me in the Bingi, they started to come to attend that church. Others were like, oh, Nyabingi does not chant in the city. I said, but you tell me that it was Nyabingi that brought down the walls of the Jericho city. So you chanted Nyabingi for 7 days around Jericho walls. So if that is the case, I will establish the Nyabingi church in the city. And then in the beginning, the Melchisedek Order was based on the Nyabingi principles, but then we incorporated polygamy. We allowed those Rastas who eat their fish. We allow other Rastas who do certain things that are not conventionally accepted, as long as they accept and respect the principles of the Melchisedek house. And thus, we had the biggest Melchisedek house in South Africa. And then in 2005, 6, after I came back from Ethiopia, actually 2004, before I go to Ethiopia, we had a serious fallout with the elder we started the Melchisedek house with. He was more a Christian than Rasta. He still is. He's more into Christology than into the divinity of Haile Selassie. He will tell you that if you don't accept Christ, is a problem. And I will say, if you don't accept Haile Selassie, for me, is a problem. So, and then we had a fallout. They went and established the Melchisedek house where they were white. And then we went and we were our black because we were preaching black supremacy. And
Yes.
then we changed that to Bakehase. Now, Ba is a Bantu word for the soul, the spirit, the essence.
Okay.
Kehase is Amharic word for the abbreviation of Ke for Kedemawi, Ha for Haile, Se for Selassie. So we simply said we are Bantu, or the people of Kedemawi Haile Selassie, or we are the divine essence of Kedemawi Haile Selassie.
Okay.
And in Bakehase, we went on to be a non-biblical order of Ras Tafari, which I'm their grandmaster. I have branches in Tanzania, in South Africa, in Lesotho, in Namibia, in Swaziland, in some of the Southern African countries.
Wow, that's a lot. So let's start with where the split happened, which is polygamy. I had one of your students on this platform, Ayalu, Abba Ayalu, who is one of your students who spoke very highly, and we touched on the polygamy. Explain to the global audience the rationale behind polygamy. I always say that polygamy is a rich man vibration, because you have to have the economic strength to really provide for these sistren. How does the I look at polygamy? How does it work? What is the rationale? Let's go into polygamy versus monogamy as it relates to Rastafari.
Polygamy, it is necessitated by different reasons, cultural and spiritual reasons. It is not correct that it's a rich man's thing. You can visit Swaziland right now, you'll find a poor man with his two wives. Together they're planting ganja and selling it. One of the people we buy ganja from in Swaziland. Majority of them are polygamous.
Okay.
African men have always been polygamous. It's not wealth, because the different definition of polygamy, like in my case, I speak of entrepreneurial polygamy.
Okay.
That it is not a welfare system. Everyone must contribute. And when I first raised it up in the Nyabingi 25 years ago, in the year 2000, I spoke of biblical orientation of it from the book of Isaiah 4 verse 1. In the book of Isaiah 4 verse 1, it speaks of women who are well off, that they can afford their clothes and their food. They only need to be called by the name of a man. So from biblical point of view, coming from this particular passage of Isaiah, it positioned polygamy outside of this welfare system that a man have to take care of these women. But it speaks of well-off women like today. Today, we're having an interesting scenario where the only people on earth as Africans, where you'll hear our women say, I'm independent, I'm a successful and single woman. They talk about men, they can't find men because they intimidate men with their success, with their independence. So we're having a system that is over-empowering women and less empowering men. In South Africa, we have 16 days of activism against women and children. We have a thing called take a girl child to work. We don't have a thing called take a boy child to work. So we have a system that is over-empowering women. Now the question is, who is going to marry these over-empowered women? When you don't prepare or empower men who are going to be equals to these over-empowered women, how is it going to work? And it has created these social fissures, cracks, that we are having a lot of women who have now created concepts like Ben 10, where elderly women are dating young men because they have money, they have this, the only thing they don't have is a man to sleep with. And it becomes very parasitical because these men also suck the money from these women and go and do their thing with their peers because these women are too old for them, but they have money because they're over-empowered. So I spoke biblically from Isaiah 4 verse 1. Polygamy is stated as a system that is going to rescue this current generation of women who are over empowered, who are over privileged over men. Because in South Africa, we have a problem. Our political system is trying to regurgitate some of the things that are not really historically correct. They talk about patriarchy, and in their definition, patriarchy is just men oppressing women. So, in correcting these injustices of the past, they're over empowering women. You're having over empowered women who can't find men on their own level because she goes to the mall, she's driving this big BMW, she's a CEO somewhere. Men are afraid of approaching her because they're already thinking that she's out of our league. But at the same time, she's thinking, I'm well accomplished and I need a man, irrespective. And they created this social dysfunctional practices like Ben 10, dating younger, and
Yes.
and just wanting a man, and they find themselves in a parasitical relationship. So now to say polygamy is for the wealthy is not historically correct.
All right.
One of the
Correct.
cultural prerogatives of polygamy is that, like, my mother went on to become my father's fourth wife because the ancestors, they wanted a wife from the royal family. So you find that you have a wife who's barren, she can't bear children. So tradition dictate that you must get the second wife who will be able to bear children for you, or tradition dictate that you must get the wife of the ancestors, because most of the time the first woman we marry is just our choice. It's not necessarily the choice of the ancestors. And sometimes you find that you are a royalty, they want a woman from the royal blood. So we have about 3,000 African traditions based on the 3,000 African nations, what the white men call tribes. So all of them practice polygamy differently. Even from one ethnic group like me, I'm a Northern Sotho speaker, the Bapedi. In our Bapedi culture, there is no one particular single way of prescribing polygamy. Like I said, that my mother was brought in because they wanted a wife from the royal family. But in other situation, you'll find that they want an ancestral wife. In other situation, it's a man who's trying to build an empire, that each one must contribute in the building of that empire. One of the women once told me that, I think you need to be a millionaire first before you become a polygamist. I said to her, my problem with that is that I'm not going to know which woman is here because of me or because of my millions.
Okay.
So you have other situation. I talked to one of my brethren. His wife problem is that we are well accomplished. We have accumulated a lot. We have 22 houses. We have about 23 cars. We have this, we have that. So we don't want any other woman who's just coming to enjoy our hard labor.
Yes.
So there are many prerogatives. There is no, like with many African things, there is no one size fit all. We need to resist this Eurocentric concept of straitjacketing African things and of trying to define, using European concepts to define African phenomena like polygamy. Is not one way to eat. There's no one way to eat. And most people are caught up in this Eurocentrism, although most of them are actually articulating this anti-Afrocentricism. It's not Afrocentric, but fundamentally it's anti-Afrocentric.
Yes.
So, and they'll go on like largely the Ras Tafari movement, as it is positioned right now, is one of the anti-African culture movement.
Yes.
From my South African culture experience, my South African Ras Tafari experience, is that most South African Ras Tafari, by extension, most African Ras Tafari, when they turn Rasta, they turn against their African culture, their African identity, their African reality.
Yes.
So, and they speak against that. And majority of Rastafari in South Africa, 99% of their idea of evil is things that come out of African spirituality and African mysticism. They tell about witchcraft. They tell about, oh, our ancestors were evil. Oh, they did not know Christ. All of this type of thing. So they position Rastafari as an anti-African movement, which is pretending to be very African and Afrocentric. But Rastafari, if we are going to articulate it from Marcus Garvey's Africa for Africans, from the elders of Rastafari philosophies of we can't give away a continent for an island, and repatriation is a must, you must go back to our roots and culture and all of that, it becomes a serious contradiction. So
Yes.
the same with polygamy. Most people try to straitjacket polygamy, define it according to Eurocentric definitions or contemporary definition that just say polygamy is this way. It's not.
Yes.
It has never been. Like I say, even from my own singular ethnic group, there is no one way to it. There's no one size fit all. It's determined by so many things. Either the ancestors want their ancestral wife, either you are required because you are a royalty to get a wife from the royal family, either because the first wife is barren, either because you need to extend, like one man I know, two of his brothers are homosexuals, and ancestors require him to take another wife on and two more wives on behalf of his two brothers who have decided to become homosexuals, and they can't continue with the lineage.
Okay.
So it's also about lineage continuation.
Yes,
so there
yes.
are myriad of reasons why polygamy is practiced in Africa.
Why I bring it up is because in the West, I know I've seen many Rastafari try to practice polygamy in the West. So first of all, a lot of brethren who would burn out the eye are practicing hypocrisy because they have a lot of women on the side that they are programming in a polygamous, but it's not upfront, you know. But what I've seen and what I've observed is that without the financial foundation, it always causes problems with these relationships because the brethren is not able to provide that stability. The sister and them, you know, become the main breadwinners, and then if they don't get along, it starts to diminish and then it breaks down. I've seen it happen many, many times here in the West. But I know that, you know, the sisters here are cultured according to the West. So what you're saying in South Africa is that it's that sister will accept a brethren who doesn't necessarily have the finances to make it work, and they're willing to come together and to build with that brethren from the ground. Is that what the eye is saying?
Yes, King. Because this is where I'm trying to shift the focus from a welfare system. You know,
Yes.
people talk about women as if they are children. How are we going to take care of them?
Yes.
Fine. Let's say 5 of my queens are well accomplished.
How many queens does the eye have, first of all? And
no, I always say women are not cows. We don't count them.
You don't count them. Okay.
They're not cows.
Okay.
They're not livestock. So let's say 5 of my queens are all well accomplished than myself.
Okay. All right.
And the vision is to build an empire, is to build a legacy. So, and which is the case, like I said,
Yes.
for me, I advocate entrepreneurial polygamy.
Okay.
Because I disagree with this Western crass materialism. In South Africa, they have a thing called indoda must, which means a man must. So there are so many. I always say, welcome to Africa, where you have to be rich to date a broke woman. Where the broke woman will castigate you and chastise you for being broke, for being unable to do for herself what she can't do for herself.
Yes.
Now, that is a Western crass materialism and Western consumerism that influence this type of position. Now, in the African setup, the women is in charge of the household. In the Zulu language, we have what we call a man is the head of the homestead.
Yes.
A woman is a head of the family.
Mm-hmm.
A woman transform a house into a home.
Mm-hmm.
It will be very understandable if I have to articulate this thing in the indigenous languages that indoda intloko yomuzi umfazi intloko ekhaya. We call him Numzani because the head of the homestead. It is more understandable in that particular context. But basically what it means is that each one contribute to the development of the family. This idea that what are you going to do to maintain me? You know, we have some other marriage system where some families, when you are marrying into that family, they bring their daughters with their university certificates. And this supposed to determine the cost of the dowry, what we call lobola. What the white men call the bride's price.
Yes.
That's, because she's got this 5 degree and what, you must pay this much. But what they don't go into is that majority of this, which I know one of the sisters I know, while she was in the university, she went on to become a porn star, you know. Now, some of these ones, while at the university, they committed abortion. The fact that I'm marrying her without a child does not necessarily mean to say she did not commit 3 or 4 abortions, or she went on to become a porn star, or she went on to sleep with 20 men. They're so defensive when you start to talk about their body count. They tell you that you understand me? So they are selling you something that other men chewed and ate for free, and you have to pay for it. And this is someone you can't proudly walk with her in public, because if you go to any social gathering, chances are 3 or 4 men in that social gathering, they've already slept with her. And her family is trying to sell her to you with some exorbitant cost. So it's a fallacy of how modern society, African society, is interpreting lobola or dowry as a bride price, that she went to school, she's educated, but they're not telling you that 6 years that she was in the university, what was she doing? Chances are majority of them, they were into so many things. Like I say, one of them is a porn star, you know, and 500,000 of people have seen her naked.
Wow.
Chances are you can go to any a social event, someone have seen in that social event, someone have seen her naked, you know. Yet her family wants to sell her to you like they're selling you a Porsche or Lamborghini.
But what I like about this, Honorable, is that families are still involved, because in the West, a lot of time families don't get involved and it's very casual. You know, we have an epidemic. We talked about this with Abba Ayalu. We have an epidemic of casual sex in the Rastafari community, where we have brethren who are engaging with sistren, you know, but there's no family involvement. So even one of the things I love to hear about this polygamy is that the family is coming, asking for the dowry or the bride price. So these are things in the West that we have lost, because families typically don't get involved until way, way down the line, you know what I mean, after the damage has been done. And one of the things that the brethren said rightly so is that, you know, Rastafari's engagement with hippie culture and free love movement, you know, this has become ingrained. And, you know, we look at examples like the same Bob Marley, who was known for having a lot of sistren, has become the norm, and people will quote King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines and these things to justify, you know, being very loose with the women. I say loosey-goosey. And what I like about what you're saying is that there's a structure and an order in African culture that persists, where families get involved. They're coming with the degrees to negotiate on behalf of their daughter, even if their daughter is questionable. You know, I like the fact that there's still structure there, you know. Can you hear I?
Yes, King. No, definitely. here in Africa, family is still very much involved in the marriage negotiations and everything,
Okay.
because it has a lot to do with the ancestors too. So the respect of the ancestors. So yes, and unfortunately, this is one of the things that when Rastafari was introduced to South Africa and Africa, was in most cases, you'll be told that, yeah, well, Adam did not marry Eve. So you have a whole lot of Rastas who are cohabiting uh, with their queens, and families not involved, particularly also here in South Africa, that most of them, when they turn Rastafari, they turn against their own families, their own tradition. They quote scriptures. They tell you that Christ said, if your mother don't come and your father don't come, and just
Yes.
leave them and come. So in that way, they cut out a lot of traditional prerogatives that allow these rights to be observed.
No, it's serious. It's serious. I have one queen, but I don't think it should be a vexation that causes division. In my father's house, there are many mansions, even if you want to take it from a biblical root. And I think that we don't have the luxury of the division created by, how a brethren maintain his family situation. As long as he's maintaining it, as long as the youths them are secure, I think that we have to find a way to overcome this kind of difference based on monogamy or polygamy. And rightly so, there are more sistren born than brethren. So you're gonna have a surplus. I mean, if the sistren them don't get to do that, it might not be for everyone. And of course, His Majesty have an example of a monogamous structure. So you probably even have the majority that's going to deal with monogamy. But I think we have to stop letting these things cause division amongst us. And then at the end of the day, we don't have a school, we don't have a health center, but we're arguing over a brethren who have two wives or one wife, or a brethren who eat fish and one who don't eat fish, or a red flag on the top or green on the top. And these things at the end of the day are not moving us toward self-sufficiency. These things are not securing for us the type of progression that we need. So I don't see it as a harm. But I want to get into the establishment of the Melchisedek Order. Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
before that,
Yes.
let me comment on what the I said, because it's quite profound. It takes a particular level of maturity to just say what the I just said now. Unfortunately, majority of Rastafari have reduced it to this pettiness of food, family, woman, and so forth. And Rastafari have internalized the conflict instead of externalize it to Babylon. Even here in South Africa, I'm part of different Rastafari WhatsApp groups. They spend a lot of time fighting over doctrines. Mostly it's even Christian doctrine that got nothing to do with Rastafari liberty, because you still have a lot of Rastas who are very Christian inclined. So they shifted the goalpost from bigger picture. So it is important that most Rasta, if they could echo what the I just said now, that it's not red on top or green on top, it's not fish food, it's not woman, it's about progress in Rastafari, health center, school.
Yes.
Because what is so profound about Rastafari is that Rastafari diagnose most of social problems before anyone else, Ras
Yeah.
Tafari was the first to point out that education is a brainwash, as we
Yeah.
know it.
Yes.
Ras
Yes.
Tafari was the first even to teach us about word sound,
Yes.
that we don't understand, we overstand. These are not just word play. These go deep into the structure of the English language. Like when you say grammar,
Yes.
it comes from grimoire, which is basically a magical book that the Europeans had. It speaks about things like understand, that it means today to stand under. It speaks about a lot of concepts that Rastafari long diagnosed. In 1946, the Western system, particularly in America, they stopped teaching etymology, the roots of the word. What does this thing mean? When the Rockefellers came up with this current educational system, they made it sure that it is the antithesis of what Rasta is teaching today. But Rasta moved from their own value system, their own philosophy, and get themselves caught up in Christian theology, in pettiness, just to be broad. So I'm just adding to what I just said now.
Yes.
But coming to the Melchisedek Order, the formation of the Melchisedek Order, with us, we had a fallout with the Nyabingi, and then we were still very much stuck up in the Bible.
Yes.
So we went into the Bible this is what happened in 2001 when I met the Oracle Nyabingi in Uganda, the indigenous roots of Nyabingi. I was a Nyabingi high priest, and I'd asked the elders from Jamaica the origin of Nyabingi, then they come up with all this biblical mix-up of articulation Nyabingi in the context of Melchisedek Order.
Yes.
But I'm saying Nyabingi is a shamanic order. It's not.
Yes.
It's a shamanistic order.
Yes.
It's not a priestly order.
Yes.
From its origin in Africa.
Yes.
And Nyabingi is a name of a woman. Melchizedek is a name of a man.
Yes.
So they're trying to do this religious syncretism of syncretizing African spiritual tradition with biblical religious tradition.
Yes.
So I remember I asked her 3 questions when I met her, and I always say that this is a person I searched for in Uganda for 3 months, only to spend 30 minutes with her. So when I finally met her, it was a big search. I ended up being arrested by the military intelligence of Uganda. I imprisoned for 7 days for conducting research at the foothills of the Mountains of the Moon at Rwenzori without authorization. So one of the things I asked was, do you have any connection as Nyabingi of Uganda with Haile Selassie of Ethiopia? They said no. Do you read the Bible? They said no. Do you have any direct link with Jamaica? They said no. But I was still too naive to comprehend what was said. And I went on to establish the Melchisedek Order because I was like, okay, this Nyabingi thing is not really biblical.
Yes.
What is biblical is the Melchisedek Order.
Yes.
It's in the Bible.
Yes.
So Melchisedek Order was founded on the biblical basis.
Okay.
And we incorporated some practices that come from the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. I'm the first Rasta to baptize Rasta in the name of Haile Selassie, not in the name of Jesus. What I went on to baptize about 3,000 Rastafari in South Africa. I gave them names, including Abba Ayaleu Amlak. Is one of the people I baptized during the days of the Melchisedek Order. And when I baptize them, I'll give them an Amharic name that is in line with the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. But then the end of the name, I'll put Wuldi Haile Selassie, which means son of Haile Selassie.
Okay.
Because I conducted the baptism in the name of Haile Selassie. and the women, I'll give them the name Walata Menen in the
Okay.
end of their name, whether you'll be a Shimabet Walata Menen, Sablewengel Walata Menen, Meheret Walata Menen, to simply say the daughter of Empress Menen. Because the view was Ras Tafari is a continuation of the divinity of Haile Selassie and Empress Menen,
Yes.
informed by our balanced spirituality from Kemet to Southern Africa. We always have this thing of the balance of the male and the female, or the
Yes.
feminine and the masculine energy.
Yes.
So I was the first one even to allow women to stand in the altar of the Melchisedek house and open the scripture and teach
Okay.
based on what inspired them. I did not follow the line that say that is in the being that the woman cannot say anything in the altar and so forth.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So I was of the view that if there is a king, there must be a queen. If there's a prophet, there must be a prophetess. If there's a priest, there must be a priestess. If there's a god, there's a goddess. It's an African system of balance in ancient Kemet is known as Ma'at.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on with that until we had the fallout, and then I established the Bakehase, which is based on African spirituality.
What the fallout? Talk to us about the fallout. What was the fallout of the Melchisedek Order?
The fallout was, I was always suspicious of the colonial character of the Bible and Christianity.
Okay.
But what made it worse is that the elder I founded the Melchisedek Order with, he was more into Christology than into Rastology.
Okay.
He will even say that if you don't accept Christ, is a problem for him. And for me, I used to say, if you don't accept the divinity of Haile Selassie, is a problem for me.
Okay.
So it eventually created a split between us, because my emphasis was that Haile Selassie, from we learn from the elders, that is a new name.
Yes.
Is a name that we should go by. Not Christ, not Jesus, whether you call it Jesus or Jesus Christos or Medane Alem, that is not. The elders of the Nyabingla Ras Bonagis, they teach that His Majesty is a new name. Haile Selassie is a new name.
Yes.
So why are we stuck up in the old name when we have a new name revealed? And my other thing was that I was a proud owner, and I still am, of two books. The autobiography of Haile Selassie in Amharic.
Yes.
My Life and Ethiopia's Progress. In Amharic is called Hiwete Na Ethiopia Emerja. So, and this was basically what drove me to Ethiopia, because I wanted to study Ge'ez and Amharic in order to read that, because I knew that there's no direct translation from Amharic to English. Amharic put a verb in the end of the sentence. If you're going to say God is love, in Amharic is God love is. Exabir fikr no. So I wanted to read for myself what Haile Selassie said in his autobiography. So, and also I had a deeper understanding that.
Does the I speak Amharic? Do I speak some Amharic?
Yes, I speak Amharic and Ge'ez, and I read both Amharic and Ge'ez.
Okay, serious scholar family. Continue.
Yes. Well, I was the first Rasta to go into the Ethiopian Orthodox Church schools, got a scholarship by Abuna Paulos.
Okay.
In 2003. So in studying these things and learning them from the Ethiopian perspective, I hear most Rasta talk about the Ethiopian Bible, the Ethiopian is something, but Rastafari is not based on the Ethiopian Bible. Rastafari is based on the King James version of the Bible. Because the founders of the Rastafari, when they founded the movement in 1930, 1931, 1932, speaking of Leonard Howell, Archibald Dangley, Joseph Nathaniel Hebert, and Robert Hines, none of these ancients read the Ethiopian Bible.
No, they did not.
They interpreted Rastafarianism, the English Bible that was provided to them, which was the King James version of the Bible. But in reading the Ethiopian Bible, you start to learn different things. The Ethiopians have a thing called Tirgum, the Tirgwame, or the translations of the scriptures. For anyone, and this is where I stopped reading the Bible, was for anyone to quote the Bible for you, he must have done 4 years of Old Testament interpretations and 4 years of New Testament interpretation. I know for a fact that there is no Rasta who went and studied 8 years of the Bible's interpretation. So, and there are a lot of things that are very, very different. Most Rasta, they just sensationalize and say, oh, the Ethiopian Bible, and you're thinking, but how many of you have you read it? So when I get to read that, I started to realize a lot of differences, and therefore also contributed to my shift that my elder is having a literalist interpretation of Christology.
Yes.
And most of the things he's talking about, they're not like that, because while I'm at theology college, I learned that when the Bible say Christ walk on top of the water,
yes,
they let you know that the water is the people. Walking on top of the water, they're basically saying that Christ's level of spiritual highness was above the ordinary people. So metaphorically, it was like a man who walked on top of the water. The water is the people. So I learned these discrepancies, that most of these things we subject him to literalist interpretation of the Bible. But if you go to the biblical exegesis, the biblical hermeneutics, the biblical interpretations, they are definitely not what we are talking about. I have a book called Endemta. It's Amharic for the interpretation and translation of the book of Revelation. Once you read that book, it's not what the King James Version is saying, and you will not definitely arrive at what we say as Rastafari. So therefore, I asked, the reason I dropped out, I asked one elder I was introduced to. They said at that time he was about 100 years old. They tell me that this elder, he was the head of the Ethiopian scholars for 8 years. Ask him anything about the Ethiopian Bible or anything about extra biblical books, the Ethiopian Apocrypha of the Old Testament or the New Testament, or extra biblical books, or the Book of Jubilee, Metsafe Kufale, the Book of the Cave of Treasures, or whatever, the books of Eden or whatever. So I asked him a simple question. I said to him, Elder, I hear that you are the head of the Ethiopian theological scholars. He said, yes. I said to him, so does it mean if I study what you studied for 8 years, I will arrive at the conclusion that Haile Selassie is God? He said, no. I woke up in the morning, I packed my bag and left Ethiopia. That's how I left the theology college. Because for me, this is a waste of time. I did not come to Ethiopia to study Jesus Christ. I came to Ethiopia primarily because I'm a Rasta who has accepted the divinity of Haile Selassie. I spent 2 years resisting the church, cutting my locks or converting me to Christendom. They even lied to me and said they will make me a bishop of the Orthodox Church of the Southern African Diocese. I told them that the Feternegast said that you must be 60 years to be a bishop. I was not even yet 40 years then. So I knew that they were lying to me in order to cut my dreadlocks. So I woke up in the morning, I picked up my things, I left Ethiopia, and I thought this is a futile exercise. If I'm going to study all of this thing and still not arrive at the conclusion that I've already arrived at without reading these big theological books about theology and the Orthodox Church, why do I need to study this thing? Because I've already arrived at the conclusion that Haile Selassie is God. God is man. So why do I need to study these books if they're not going to arrive at the conclusion that I've arrived at without reading these books? So for me, that was the rationale of dropping out and leaving orthodoxy alone, but also the findings that I found that even from the Ethiopian point of view, the Bible is not the word of God. The Bible is the word about God. From Genesis to Revelation, it's about books written by men who say God say. Genesis is the first book of Moses. Exodus, the second book of Moses, Leviticus, the third book of Moses, and Numbers, the fourth book of Moses, Deuteronomy, the fifth book of Moses, Joshua. You all go on unto Revelation. You say the Revelation of St. John. In America, they say Johannes Rai, or the dreams of John. So I'm thinking, but the Bible itself does not claim to be authored by God.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about these books are written by men with different names. So now, why do I need these things when I've already arrived at the core of Rastafari, which is the divinity of Haile Selassie? Why is it necessary for us to take a person through the theological contradictory route of the Ethiopian church, the Ethiopian Bible, the Ethiopian history, when one can arrive at the divinity of Haile Selassie? That was my thing. That because like I said earlier in the beginning of our reasoning, that for me, what qualify one as a Rasta is the acceptance of Haile Selassie's divinity.
Yes, I.
You can quote all these books. You can eat your spinach and cabbage and carrots. You can be idle. You can smoke or the amount of ganja you want to smoke. But if you don't acknowledge the divinity of Haile Selassie, it's problematic.
Well, I would say you're not Rastafari, and we have to allow people. I tell people it's okay to be a Pan-African. You don't have to claim Rastafari if you don't accept the divinity. We still love you, but don't come with a confusion. Where I disagree with the somewhat, where I would diverge, is that, and what I tell my brethren, because we have other brethren who uplift Kemet, to heights and other African theology, is that I cannot diverge from the teaching of His Imperial Majesty, as it relates to Jesus Christos, Yeshua. I cannot create a word sound that is in contradiction, because for I glory in the Bible the same as His Majesty, but I don't limit myself to the Bible. So I can still go into Kemet. I can still learn about the Dogon. I can still go into the angelic reasonings of the Anunnaki and all of those things without denigrating the biblical perspective as it relates to the teachings of His Majesty. So I diverge from ones who would just throw out the whole teachings of His Majesty, because then it puts us in a position where we're arguing against the teaching of His Majesty. So how do I see that? Because His Majesty have so many teachings on Jesus Christos, Yeshua. His Majesty have so many. I mean, He's called the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, Zinagade, Yehuda, and Bessa. All of these things are there. Embrace the Lion of Judah on the flag. So when we say the Judeo-Christianity is a white man's thing, or when we lick out, this is where I differ with some of my brethren, because I can't fight against the thing teachings. How do I see that part there?
Well, first of all, Christianity is not an extension of Rastafari. Rastafari is not a cultural orphan of Judeo-Christianity. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, when they crowned Haile Selassie in 1930, they were not crowning a god. It's only the Rastafari who deify His Majesty and elevate Him to a level of a god. And that is what differentiates Rastafari from all religious systems in the world, is that we're the only one who arrive at the divinity of Haile Selassie outside of whatever we might choose to code. For instance, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, much as most Rasta are caught up in the Orthodox Church is not caught up in Rastafari. The Orthodox Church, like I say, that I spent 2 years in the institutions of the Orthodox Church Theology College. Every now and then they will be questioning me, why do I carry Haile Selassie on my chest? And I'll tell them, but it was your church that crowned him in 1930. And your church never pronounced otherwise after that. Now, but the church did not crown him a god. It's the Rastafari interpretation that make him a god.
Mm-hmm.
God is a deification of an individual. We choose who we choose to make a God out of. So we need to be very clear that most of our conclusions about Haile Selassie's divinity are independent of the Orthodox Church. Now, Haile Selassie was a Christian king, was an Orthodox Church member. This is articulated clearly by the Ethiopian Constitution and the revised Constitution of 1955
Yes.
about the relationship of the church and state. Now, the emperor have a responsibility to advocate and promote the Christian religion of Ethiopia, but the church also have a responsibility to protect the emperor.
Yes.
So, and that itself is not an extension of Ras Tafari, because I tell you from somebody who come from within the Orthodox Church, our position about Haile Selassie as God Almighty, the Orthodox Church consider it to be heretic.
Yes, I know that.
Yes. So now we are caught up in this Ethiopian exceptionalism, and which is premised on essentialist reading of history. Now, our Ethiopian essentialist reading of history were only talking about the history of the notables, the history of the ruling class of Ethiopia. And that is why most Rasta will not critique Ethiopian domestic colonialism and Ethiopian domestic slavery that ended in 1943.
Yes.
We will condemn Mussolini for invading Ethiopia between 1936 and 1935 and 1941. But one of the driving motives of Mussolini to do that was that they want to civilize Ethiopia, because Ethiopia is still backward, caught up in slavery, which it was.
Yes.
Now, and one of the things that Rastafari don't discuss, which is problematic, is that Rastafari have this romanticized history of Ethiopia, which is not historically factual and correct. Because their historical posture is premised on faith, not on facts. So Rasta is not driven by factology, but by faith. Now, the facts of history is that Ethiopia had colorism, had color issue.
Yes.
The light-skinned Ethiopians enslaved the dark-skinned Ethiopians. They call them Baria, which is Amharic word for slave, or Gala,
Yes.
which was a collective word they were referring to the Oromos.
Yes, yes.
One of the things we don't dissect is the anger of Mengistu Haile Mariam. Mengistu Haile Mariam's father was one of the people that were liberated by the Italians during their invasion of Ethiopia. They liberated a lot of slaves. One of the things that we don't talk about is why certain Ethiopians, particularly from the southern regions like Gambela and like Benishangul Gomus, why they were collaborating with the Italian, was because they considered the imperial Amhara Tigrinya ruling class as oppressors, who oppressed them, who advocated slavery. I have this book I would like every Rastafari to at least get a hold on. It is called The Making of Modern Ethiopia, 1896 to 1974, by an Ethiopian author called Tishale Tibebu. This book, it dissects Ethiopian slavery and Ethiopian Christianity, that it was as imperialistic as European slavery, as imperialistic as European Christianity. But that's the part that Rastafari is trying to avoid, because Rastafari is creating its own narrative. We need to acknowledge that Rastafari narrative is unique. That is why sometimes we will even term it half of the story they have that was never told. But the truth of the matter is partly a sensationalization, is partly a new world, Western Hemisphere, and New Age creation, which is not necessarily compatible with historical facts. We avoiding to discuss Ethiopian slavery, that 90% of people who were enslaved during Ethiopian slavery were dark-skinned Africans, practitioners of indigenous African spirituality. That 90% of Ethiopians that were converted. Ethiopian history is made up of four categories. You have the Aksumite paradigm. You had the Ge'ez civilization. You had the Tabot Christianity. Ethiopian Christianity is different. Is a Tabot Christian. Tabot is the Ark of the Covenant. For the Ethiopian church, what sanctified the church is a replica of the Ark, not the cross on top of the church. And it had the Geba system. Now, within this paradigm, you had Bete Mengest, or the house of state, or the house of the kingdom. And you had the Beta Kahanat, which is the house of the clergy, and you had the Geba system, which is where you get the word Gebre Exabier, or Gebre, which means slave of God, or the slaves. So the Ethiopian social structure was divided into three. You had those, the house of nobles, their job was to fight. The house of clergy, their job was to pray. And the house of slaves, or the servants, or the gebas, or others who say domestic slavery, their job was to serve, to work as peasants, as farmers, as agriculturists. So we overlook the fact that Ethiopian Christianity was proselytizing towards African indigenous practitioners in Ethiopia, the Oromos, the Hamer, the Benushangul, Gomus, the Gambelas, the Sidamas, and so forth. It was an imperial Christianity powered by the Tigrayans and the Amharas. And this is a problem why Shashamane is having the problem that they have. Shashamane is a land grant that is in the midst of the people who were historically slaves of the Ethiopian ruling class. Now we have a group of diaspora Africans who are oblivious to the Ethiopian history and who living in the middle of the people that the Ethiopian imperial dynasty used to consider them slaves. You have letters of Menelik sending letters to one of the greatest slave providers for him. Actually, we usually talk about the transatlantic slave trade, and sometimes people will go and talk about trans-Arabian slave trade. But what we don't talk about is the Red Sea slave trade, which Ethiopia practiced. The same passage that you find Africans who try to reach Europe through Libya, they use, is the same passage of trans-Sahara slave trade or the Red Sea slave trade, which Ethiopia practiced until 1943. And slavery is slavery, whether practiced by the Arabs, Europeans, or Ethiopians. And the light-skinned Ethiopians were enslaving the dark-skinned Ethiopians. It's part of the Ethiopian history, like I just mentioned. The book here, The Making of the Modern Ethiopia, 1896 to 1974. There's a book called The Children of Hope, written by Sandra Shell. It's about the Oromo slave children who were rescued by the British fleet at the around in the Red Sea, who were being sold to Yemen. They end up in South Africa in the Eastern Cape. There's a book called Children of Hope, the Odyssey of the Oromo slaves. So His Majesty teach us that beside religious knowledge, you must acquire secular knowledge.
This is a fact. And one thing I will say, just in terms of contextually, that we have to make important is that the Ethiopian, the light skin, was not because of Arab colonization. It was the opposite. It was Ethiopia's colonization of Arabia that brought in this admixture. During the reign of Azania, of Caleb, who conquered Arabia, the year that Muhammad was born, the year of elephants, Ethiopian general Abraha marched elephants up to the gates of Mecca. So the Ethiopian colonized Arabia, and this brought in the admixture. The Yemenis were always part of the kingdom of Seba or Seba. So a lot of people try to characterize this as Arabs coming in and colonizing Ethiopia. That's not supported by history. It was the opposite. It was the Ethiopians. The other part is that the Oromo, although they were victimized, we have to tell the whole story, because during the time of Ahmad Gran, the left-handed, and the conquest of Abyssinia, the Oromo nearly conquered the entire realm of Ethiopia, and they also had their period of conquest. So they make it look like it was only the Amhara and the Tigrinians who went through this conquest. Also, we have the Yeju Oromo, which were ruling during the era of judges, or the Zemini Masafit, which was the Oromo of Wallo, who were in power, Ras Ali. And then finally, I would say that His Majesty unites these three sects in the bloodline, because His Majesty have Goragi bloodline, he have Oromo bloodline, he have Amhara, and even Tigray within his bloodline. So in the personality of His Majesty, you have many of these bloodlines converging. Finally, I would say that His Majesty ended slavery, as you said, 1943. It was only after the war that His Majesty assumed supreme power over the realm. Prior to that, there were independent kingdoms that gave fealty to the central government. It was after the war that His Majesty was able to create a centralized military that was superseded the power of the independent races and the kingdoms, where he could really implement the stamping out of slavery. It was His Majesty, through the imposition of a constitution, that raised the Ethiopian from a peasant to a citizen who had rights and so forth. But continue. I just wanted to put some context.
To give to add on the context you gave, because it's very important, is that we need to extricate Haile Selassie from this historical essentialism and this Ethiopian exceptionalism. This Ethiopian exceptionalism is premised on two things. One of them is the idea that Ethiopia resisted colonialism for years, and the second part is that it's a Christianity. But you see, Ethiopian history has been written as the history of dynastic narratives. Like the Byzantine and Chinese counterparts, the Ethiopian court historian was a professional flatterer of the reigning monarch.
Yes.
Like the man who wrote the Kebra-Nagast. So elevating him to the sky while diminishing the stature of the previous rulers. In the hands of some modern Ethiopian historian, the narrative of Ethiopian history became one of essentialist reproduction. Now we need to remove Haile Selassie from that, because this then, it tells of the Ethiopian history as a historical succession of Aksumite, Zagwe, and Showan dynasty, each expanding the territorial domain of the Ge'ez civilization in a southerly direction, whereby Ethiopian history from Aksum to Haile Selassie was seen as being basically the same, and it was not. And most Rastafari, they treated the same, like from Aksum, from Ezana accepting Christianity to Haile Selassie being the Christian king, is the same. So this Ethiopian Tabot Christian denominationalism has found its utmost expression in this essentialist reading of Ethiopian history. Now, this is where we need to understand why, out of the 225th kings of Ethiopia, 334 kings from Solomon, why Haile Selassie? Haile Selassie, he made one statement, and he did one thing that none of the Ethiopian emperors did. The relationship of the church and state was that every emperor, he must contribute to the expansion of the Christian domain of Ethiopia. The Ge'ez civilization had its own heathens. They called them Altetemaku Ahazab, unbaptized heathens. Hence, historically, Ethiopians used to refer to itself as an island of Christianity surrounded by sea of Piagans. Now, what is surrounding Ethiopia is Africa. Is Kenya, is Sudan, is Somalia, is Eritrea, is what they call what is that place? On the side of Somalia and Eritrea. There's this coastal country.
Djibouti.
So Djibouti. So basically, we need to understand that Ethiopians, they refer to their God from the time of Solomon and Sheba. They refer to their God as Israeli Amlak, the God of Israel. Not Ethiopia Amlak, not the God of Ethiopia. That when the Queen of Sheba went to see Solomon, she went there as a worshiper of the God of Ethiopia and come back as a worshiper of the God of Israel. And this is where that most Rastafari don't want to expand their horizon to look at the religious colonization of Ethiopia by Israel from Solomon's time. We look at this thing as just one straight history, like this Aksumite paradigm, that from Aksum to Haile Selassie, the Ethiopian history straight line. It's not. Ethiopian emperors were expected to convert others. Ligiasu was deposed for claiming Islam. But Haile Selassie said, yes, I'm a Christian, but as a king, I'm equally a Christian, a Muslim, and a pagan. Now, we need to have a deeper Rastafari analysis of this statement. There's no way one can be a Christian and a Muslim at the same time. It's heretism. There's no way one can be a Christian and a pagan at the same time. There's no way one can be a Muslim and a pagan at the same time. But Haile Selassie made that statement that, yes, I'm a Christian, but as a king, is a paradigm shift, you know. When you say as a king, it's shifting the paradigm that as a king, I am equally a Christian, a Muslim, and a pagan. We need to understand that part. Secondly, Haile Selassie coined the term, religion is personal and the country is for all. Or religion is personal and Ethiopia is for all, because all emperors of Ethiopia were expected to proselytize and convert non-Christian Ethiopian population. By that time, only 2 of the 82 ethnic groups were only Christian, the Amharas and the Tigrans. The rest of the 80 ethnic groups, the Benishangul, the Gambelas, the Sidamas, the Hamer, the Orobos, were not Christians. So why did Haile Selassie make that departure? That is why certain historians, Ethiopian historians, accuse Haile Selassie of participating in pagan rituals because he refused to follow that line. He was not a proselytizer. Now, when we come in the name of Haile Selassie and try to proselytize the African into Christianity, because we confuse Haile Selassie confession of faith as a Christian, because the religion of Haile Selassie is not the extension of the faith of Rastafari. We are not Rastafari because of the religion of Haile Selassie. We are Rastafari because of the divinity of Haile Selassie that supersedes and transcends his Christian religion and his statement that I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, and I'm a pagan. We go beyond that. But this idea, this persistence of trying to turn Rastafari as a new age Christology and creating Christafarians instead of the Rastafarians is problematic, because the Orthodox Church as we know it today, it refused to acknowledge Haile Selassie's divinity as the Rastafari does. As I said, that most of the Rastafari, they're into Orthodox faith, they're into Bible, they're into Christianity, but the Ethiopian Christianity, the Ethiopian Orthodox faith, the Ethiopian Bible does not support this Rastafari assertion because it's a unique position. And we need to accept our uniqueness. We don't need to find similarities in the Orthodox faith. The Orthodox Church failed to reach the heights that Rastafari reached, which is the heights of acknowledging Haile Selassie's divinity. And here we are caught up in system that does not acknowledge or transcend to the level of consciousness that we have transcended. For me, it's problematic. It's like a Stockholm syndrome. You are so much obscenely in love with your abusers, because the Ethiopians, they don't spend any time, They don't even think twice to denounce Haile Selassie's divinity. From the church, I had regular meeting with Abuna Paulos, the man who gave me scholarship, the head of the Orthodox Church, the Black Pope of Ethiopia, who did not acknowledge Haile Selassie's divinity. Neither was the Orthodox Church. Nothing in the official doctrine of the Orthodox Church say Haile Selassie is God. I even ask, why don't you accord Haile Selassie a divine status? They told me that after, they said, I don't know, after 30 years or 40 years, they will canonize Haile Selassie as a saint, but not as a god. Like I said, these are the things that made me leave the Orthodox Church and study with them, that even if I spend my entire 4 years of this scholarship, or I study for 8 years, I'm not going to arrive at the conclusion that Ras Tafari made me arrive at without studying any of these things. So we feel obligated to a system that does not feel obligated to our fundamental principles, which is the divinity of Haile Selassie. So when Rasta talk about Haile Selassie, you must read the Bible, I say read that within context. Was he addressing the Rastafari? There are practically 3 places or 3 areas that Haile Selassie spoke directly to the Rastafari. And not everything that Haile Selassie said is a gospel truth for Rastafari. For instance, he rebuked nuclear position or nuclear armed countries. We don't have nuclear bombs. We can't apply that speech of Haile Selassie speaking against nuclear bombs and everything to us. Haile Selassie said in one of his speeches, I speak to and for the consciousness of humanity. So not every utterance of Haile Selassie was addressed to the Rastafari. No, I find it problematic that most Rastafari are holding tight to Haile Selassie's Christian speeches than his Pan-Africanist speeches. Because there are a lot of his Pan-Africanist speeches where he talk about we Ethiopians belongs to one group of people, the African people. In 1963, during the opening of the OAU, he made that statement that we Ethiopians belongs to one group of people, which is the African people. But I find Rasta is desperately trying to associate Ethiopia with Israel, while Haile Selassie said, we belongs to the African people. And I found most Rasta in South Africa condemn Africa and the African culture. I read Haile Selassie's speech addressing to the United Nations in 1968 that we Africans, if we find it necessary, we will fight, and we know we shall win, as we are confident in the victory of good over evil.
Yes.
I don't find anywhere where Haile Selassie said our African identity and our Africanness is a stumbling block to the ultimate victory.
No.
But I know a lot of Rasta who are trying to convince us that there's something wrong with us being African. So we must be Jamaican, we must be Ethiopian, we must be Israel, but not African. Like I say, my first point of reference is the 3 million Rastafari of South Africa.
Yes.
Who, when they turn Rasta, they turn Jamaican, and by extension, they turn Ethiopian and Orthodox and Christian. But I say I've never came across any speech of Haile Selassie where he condemned Africa or the African culture. But I
That's a
know
fact.
thousands of Rastafari who condemn being African and being practitioners of African culture and African spirituality. Yet I was brought up in Rastafari to understand that Rastafari is spiritual,
Yes.
way of life, not religious. There is a speech that actually the authorship of it is now contested. Some they say it was authored by Mvenga.
I know exactly. That speech has never been validated, but I do have some words on by one of our Lion Pride, Kasrata Music Records. He said, we don't consider our religion alone valid and have granted the people the freedom to observe any religion they please. So this is the Lion Pride chiming in. We have one of the greatest online communities on the planet, highly intelligent. So there it is. I mean, the teachings of His Majesty will free us from religion and some of these constraints, because this is why, and I heard you cite the testimony of His Majesty on the train to Canada, and they ask him, what would you tell someone considering the claims of Christ for the first time? And the first thing His Majesty said is, I would tell them to seek secular knowledge. I would tell them to, not confine themselves to just the biblical interpretation. Read all of the books of knowledge so that you have context. You can, expand your learning, because religion to I is like a scaffold, because most of the people are illiterate. Most of the people need direction. So religion serve a purpose in terms of structuring a society. Where the knowledge used to be was in the mystery schools, where they would have initiates, where the knowledge would expand beyond what they gave to the regular people. And what I see with His Majesty is he breaking these bonds that religion confine us to, and bringing us to a larger knowledge and a larger reality. So I really give thanks for the I perspective. And again, I want to emphasize that this is not, we shouldn't have a division. I shouldn't hate Thau Thau because he don't see the biblical narrative. What I'm asking from my global family is try to fix your reasoning that you're not going against His Majesty, so it look like you is warring against His Majesty teaching, because it make us look like we don't know what we're talking about. It's either He's the Almighty or He's not. And I don't see His Majesty as a deity. I see Him as the Almighty, because deity is any God, and I see His Majesty as higher than God. In terms of being the manifestation of the I, and His Majesty live within I. His Majesty live within Thau Thau. His Majesty live within all of I, and connecting to that Haile Selassie within self is what brings us together and what gives us the power to conquer Babylon. So I want to just leave that there. We've been on for 2 hours. I want to be respectful of the I time. This is part 1. So I want to give the I some time to just give some sealing remarks. This is an instant classic episode. I want everyone to know that we're going to have the brethren come forward. We didn't get to some of the other topics, but I think this is a great introduction, because the other thing, Field Marshall Thau Thau, is that we have to learn to agree to disagree. And as Rastafari, what I find is that everybody if you don't have the same reasoning as you become my enemy. And I hate you with a perfect hatred, because you don't see things how I see them. And to me, that's foolishness. His Majesty never taught us that. That's not, that's a false doctrine, that everybody have to be the same in order for us to work together. So I want to just kick that down right here on the Lion Voice Network. We bring all type of Rastafari on this platform. We've had brethren who, Kemet is the highest for them. They don't want to hear nothing about the Bible. We've had biblical brethren. We have African-centric brethren. We have, Bobo. We have Bingi. We have 12 Tribe. We have Orthodox, EWF. All of them on this platform. And what we want to show the world is that we have more in common than we disagree with. And let us build a bridge on what we agree on, rather than, when I was a young Ras, I used to call people who ate fish mouth. And I wouldn't work with a man who eat fish. And it's only when you get older you realize this nonsense, because some of the man them were idle, they're not on time, they don't follow their word. So I'm cutting myself off from being productive because I'm on a food doctrine. And so we have to mature in our understanding of Rastafari, and we have to find the commonality, because the real Armageddon is here. The chessboard, we see it moving. The global order is being reordered in front of our eyes. We're going into a multipolar world now. South Africa is part of the BRICS, which is at war with the G7, and we have to find out where we fit in this Armageddon, or we will be on the menu. So I want us to put down these stupidness of the petty differences and find the commonality. The polygamous man and the monogamous man have to work together. The man who who is barefoot after work with the man in the office, the man who, who is doing carpentry after work with the man who is a pilot. There's room for all of us, the market person. The only thing that I would say is that we all have to strive for self-improvement. So if you cannot read, I don't support you lifting that up like that is something to be proud of. You should learn how to read. If you can do something, because we always have to grow and evolve and get better. So don't get caught in a stagnation. But other than that, we can disagree on everything and still find one thing that we work together. And the other things, we don't have to spend 20 hours about the things we disagree. We can talk about, okay, we need a health center. Let's just focus on that. Every time I see Thau Thau, we're dealing with health center because I know he sees my see this way, I see him that way. So we don't need to bring up that right now. We need to work on a health center so that our elders can be cared for, our youths, them can have daycare center and they can learn about His Majesty. So that's how we have to think as a family globally, is find the common ground, build from there. When we build a prosperity and all of us are wealthy, both spiritually and otherwise, then we can sit down and we can disagree and have these reasons. But this is wartime. We have to get our act together. But I want to give the eye a chance to say your final words to the global family. It's been an honor and a privilege to hear the eye articulate so well. I look at the eye as a genius, a multilingual brethren where I have so much knowledge I'm learning as I'm also listening. So I definitely want to bring the eye back. We don't touch on the book of Enoch. There's a lot of things I would love to get your perspective as a reader of Ge'ez and Amarinya, you know what I mean, and a man who has studied with the monks and these things. I would love to dip into some of those things, but the time. So give us your final sounds to the global family. All Lion Pride, big up on yourself. This one was a classic. Please give us your final sound.
Give thanks, King. Actually, what made me very much comfortable to agree to reason with the eye. There's one photo of the eye I love the most. Is on social media where the eye is sitting on top of books and reading a book.
Yes.
So
I am the reading Ras.
Me,
yeah, I'm the reading.
Yeah,
Ras.
so for me, it's okay. This is a reading Ras. I have a personal library of more than 500 books. I read.
Yes.
That's what I do. I read, I absorb information. I spend a lot of time with the family. I come, like here, I'm at my mother's house. From there, I'm going to my house because we don't have electricity and Wi-Fi there. It's still some new houses. So every time when I'm here, I carry my bag with full of books, or I'm studying something from the internet. So, and it made me very comfortable to agree to reason with the eye that, okay, at least the eye is open-minded, because here we're dealing with a very close-minded Rastafari who are quick to label you heathen, pagan, your His Majesty. I have people who say I hate Haile Selassie purely because I don't read the Bible, but I articulate the divinity of His Majesty more than the rest of them combined. I've been doing that on TV for the past 28 years and also social media for the past years and so forth. So there's a high level of intolerance among us based on different perspective of Rastafari as our reality. But one of the things I always bring to their attention is that one of the fundamental philosophies of Rastafari is that Rastafari is self-definition. Who feels it knows it. I remember in 2005, I was called by TV to come and explain why Lucky Dube say he's not a Rasta. And I said, Rastafari self-definition. If the man says not Rasta, he's not Rasta. And if he says Rasta, is Rasta. Even if a man come without dreadlocks and so forth, but if he says Rasta, is Rasta, because Rastafari is self-definition. But I find that that spiritual, intellectual maturity is lacking. You have a lot of people who are all out to create enemies out of their fellow Rasta, because people who don't like me is based on the Christian doctrine, not on Rastafari doctrine, not on Rastafari philosophy. And also, I learned quite early in the levity that I need to separate Rastafari tradition from Rastafari theology and Rastafari philosophy. Rastafari philosophy is those that will talk about Rastafari self-definition, who feels it knows it, will never give a continent for an island. Rastafari is a levity, that is philosophical. And Rastafari culture now is something completely different from Rastafari theology, because largely Rastafari theology is Judeo-Christian, and which does not agree with fundamental Christian interpretation, be it Orthodox or not. I studied with the Orthodox Church. They don't agree with most of the things we say. I remember I used to go and ask for audience from Abuna Paulos to allow me permission to smoke ganja in the church, because I was the only Rasta there. And every time you're sitting under a tree, you try to have a spliff there. There is some Ethiopian church goer who is praying. The Ethiopians pray everywhere. So it used to give me a problem. So I requested a special audience, and then I got the audience with the Abuna.
Okay. Wi-Fi the guy. We are in the ceiling of this classic episode, family. I'm just gonna let Field Marshall say his final sound. We also have a Sosa Crew event taking place. I'm gonna post that information on our community tab, so we don't end this session. We can all jump over into the Sosa Crew. School of the Rastafari Sacrament reasoning has started, so we're gonna go right into there. They've asked I to block a few sounds there. That's on Zoom, so I will post that in our community tab. Okay, we lost the brethren, so we're just gonna seal up. But again, this is a classic episode, and part of the reason that we bring on all of these different is just to show the unity and the power that we have. Let us focus on what we agree on. Can we agree that 50,000 people giving $10 is $500,000 of capital? And can we make that work? Or do we need to argue about things that are not going to move us from being dependent on Babylon to being independent? So these are the things that I want to discuss. You see, we disagree on things. I will always hold on to the biblical interpretation, because that's how I got it from my Haitians. And when I read His Majesty, that's what I read. But I don't cut myself off from indigenous African knowledge. I don't cut myself off from the teachings of ancient Kush, Sumar. I don't cut myself off from the teachings of Kemet. I embrace all, and I find make sense out of nonsense and use His Majesty as my guide to navigate the waters. So that's what we are all about here on the Lion Voice Network. And we're going to continue. Why? Because the time has come for the lions to tell our own story. And this is the Lion's Voice. Haile Selassie I the
Greetings. Rastafari, Haile Emperor Haile King Selassie I, the perfect balance Empress meaning. This is first man for Rastafari indigenous village, recognizing, accepting, promoting Lion Voice. Yes, the voice of Rastafari, speaking about Rastafari, educating Rastafari, preserving, protecting Rastafari. Give thanks.
Aye, Rastafari, mighty.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega, representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Rastafari live it. Hey, the lion's voice, Rastafari.
Blessed love, this is Ras Tafari King representing for the Lion Voice, see? Yeah, man. Keep it locked right here, sir. On to Zion we go. Lion Voice don't move slow, no. Ras Tafari rules and reigns, and we're going where the blessings flow. Keep it locked right here, sir. Saying Ras Tafari said that. Lion's Voice.
I'm Nana Farika. The time has come for the lioness to tell her story from her viewpoint and tell the world who Queen Omega is. This is the Lion's Voice.
Greetings, this is Junior Martin of Bob Marley and the Wailers. The time has come for the lion to tell his story. And we have here the Lion Voice. So listen in and get nourishment for the stomach and for the head cup. Jah, Ras Tafari.
Give thanks.
Give thanks and praise every time.
Great honor, great honor.
What are you waiting for? Come together, calling from near and far. Know who you are. What are you waiting for? Rally up, it takes the dust. What are you waiting for? Ancestors paved the way for us. Yes, I am Ketis Oyonde, asking, what are you waiting for to come together? The time has come for the lions to tell our own story. This is the Lion's Voice.
It's A-double-T-I-T-U-D-E representing for Lion's Voice. Yes, massive. This is the time for I and I, the lion, them to tell I and I story, our story. Yes, and we reign and rule like this. Reign and rule, yeah. Selassie I reign and rule. You can't take the lion vibes, people. If you no fool, cause we know Selassie reign and rule. Reign and rule. Selassie I reign and rule. Queen Omega drop them in the fire, pull from them, no Queen Omega, she reign and rule. Royal Kushite, ancient essence, Emperor Selassie in a majestical presence, flash of all sevens, projecting through I and I events. We sing a song for the king, we bring joy and blessing and understanding, yeah. We hear Jah every day, reign and rule, yeah. Selassie, reign and rule. Yes, I lion vibes, Selassie, reign and rule. Attitude to that. Boondocks, Black Organization of Global Diplomats optimizing expressions to the world. Till the world, till the end.
Well, Lion Voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion Voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion Voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion Voice, got to show the people them the light. Lion Voice.